Hello, everybody. It's Angelique coming to you live from the Shoe Chick Art Studio in fabulous Las Vegas. And I am the Shoe Chick because when you paint with me, kids in Africa get shoes. And if you want more information about me and all that good stuff, you go to the shoechickstore.com. And it's the store because there's stuff there to buy, like artwork, more paint kits, and things like that. So here's how it works. I take you about 90% through the painting and I leave you alone to do all the detail work, okay? So, super fun. Everything you need is included in your kit, and you either had your kit shipped to you because I ship anywhere, or you could pick it up locally in Las Vegas, or I even deliver for free. Yes, for free. Can you believe that? So you just text paint to the number inside your kit for more information as well. Okay, let's get to it. What the first thing I need you to do is take all the tape and all that stuff off of your kit and the lids off all of your paints. And I also need you to fill that water cup halfway with water, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to apply a light coat of water on the canvas first to activate the canvas so it's ready to accept paint. So we're kind of like priming the canvas, if you will. Some artists use gesso before they paint on the canvas, or some artists also just coat it by prime it by painting with a coat of white paint. So we're going to use water. That's what we do in the paint party world, in the paint and sip world. And in the paint and sip world, sometimes they make you draw, but I don't make you draw. I pre-trace. Because the reason why I pre-trace, because it's more for me, when you paint with me, it's for entertainment purposes, okay? You're not going to learn anything like perspective drawing or color theory or anything like that. It's about the experience, okay? The healing power of art, right? So I am dunking my sponge brush. You have three brushes that we're going to work with today. We have a sponge brush, we have a flat tip brush, and then we have a detail brush, that pointy one right there. So we're going to take the sponge brush and we're going to apply a light coat of water. Don't worry about the washing away the trace lines. They're a little bit more than just pencil, okay? So light coat of water on there, just like that. And then we want it to dry a little bit. And if you made it too wet, you could take your blue paper towel and kind of dab it off a little bit like that, okay? So, for me, like I said before, it's about the healing power of art. It creates a distraction for you right now through this crazy time that we're in. So what I want you to do is I just want you to kind of take a few deep breaths. Blow them out. And then I just want you to take all your worries and problems and all that yucky stuff and just put it in a ball and put it up on a shelf for the next 30 minutes with me, maybe around 30 minutes. But it really takes, the painting experience, I would say, takes a good solid 3 hours. A paint party with me takes 2 hours. A good painting session alone, you should allow about three hours. So this is haulin pumpkin. So it's really fun. Like, it's a good one to do with your kids. It's a good one to do with a group of people. It's gender neutral, so guys might like to paint this truck, and girls would paint this truck. Chicks and dudes would love to paint this truck. It's pretty fun, I think. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mix some gray paint while we're waiting for this to dry a little bit. So I got a separate tray, but you're going to use that same tray that your paints are in. Take your paints out. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a little bit of white paint, and I want to take a little bit of black paint, just a little bit, and I want you to mix them together and make gray. So I want it to be a light gray, so I'm going to take a little tiny bit of black, and I'm going to mix it with that white paint, and it's just a tiny bit. Now I'm doing that with my brush here, but in your paint kit you might have a popsicle stick. You could do it with a popsicle stick. Actually, that's more ideal. But, you might not have one because I'm a small business and I put your kit together and I may have forgot it, but, I'm getting better. So anyway, if you don't have it, don't fret. Use the paintbrush itself. You can use the back of the sponge brush. And by the way, don't rest that sponge brush in your water because it's a sponge and it'll suck up all the water. And we don't want it to be too wet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to outline my truck. with that gray paint. And then I'm going to kind of paint away from the truck just a little bit. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to fill the background in using the sponge brush, right? But it's hard to get in all these nooks and crannies with the sponge brush. We use the sponge brush mostly for coverage because it would take us all day to paint with this little tiny brush. So that's why I use a sponge brush. If you're going to paint with me on a regular basis, I'd highly recommend investing in a nice set of paint brushes. But this is going to work for us. So what I did is I outlined the truck. I outlined, you know, the basic picture, I guess. Not really the truck, the basic picture. And then I'm painting a little bit out from it so that I can paint the rest with my sponge brush. Now, I don't particularly like the hue, the degree of gray that I have, so I want to make it a little bit lighter. So I'm going to add a little bit more white paint. And in your kit, you have a reference photo. And the reference photo you're going to use to help guide you through the painting. Now, when you paint with me, that's another thing I like to tell people, that you don't have to go according to the reference photo. It's your painting, so you can paint it any way that you want. If you want to get a different color palette, or if you want to make the truck dark blue, or if you want to make it polka dots, I don't know. It's totally up to you because it's your painting, and art is an expression of who you are in the moment. It's not fun to try to create this painting exactly like mine, right? I don't think it would be fun. I can't even do it. I'm painting sideways. I'm painting in front of you. It's not my objective, but you know, we're going to come pretty close. But I want my background to be lighter, so I'm going to add a little bit more white paint in with my gray, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit more. I'm actually using my sponge brush, and I'm just mixing it up right here in the tray because I want it really light, like the reference photo. And you might not want it really light. You might like it like that. And then what I'm doing right now is I'm just going to fill in the background with my gray paint. I'm even going to paint over the tree because it's too hard to paint around the tree. I don't know why I outlined that. I think we could have freehanded that. But anyway, I'm just really light. Make sure you paint. It's so light, but if I turn my ring light, you can see it. It actually is gray. So really light coat of gray paint, okay? I'm going to play a little music. Nondescript, YouTube safe music, so my video doesn't get brought down. And just paint in the gray. And let's just say it's a little dark and you want it lighter when you get it on the canvas. You can mix your paint directly on the canvas. Just go into white. Okay, check it out. The next thing that I'm going to do is since we're working with gray, I'm going to make a little darker gray so I can paint around the wheels of the truck. If you look at the bottom, it's a little bit darker gray. So again, I'm going to mix a little bit more gray paint, a little bit of white, and I'm going to add with my popsicle stick a little bit of black. And I'm going to make it a little bit darker than the other gray. And if it's not as dark as you want, you can always add more black right on the canvas. Got to be careful with black though, pretty strong color. So I'm going to go just like we did with the originally, right? With the truck. And I'm going to paint right around the wheels. Just like that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my sponge brush again, or again, you can use the other brush if you feel more comfortable painting with that. And I'm going to scoot myself over because I feel like I'm out of the frame too much. Okay, so I'm going to take the gray and fill it in. And again, I'm painting the sides of my canvas. That's called wrapping your painting. That's so when you go to hang up your masterpiece, it will be finished. It'll have finished edges to it. And you won't have to buy a frame because you are going to hang up this masterpiece. It's so stinking cute, especially for fall, even though we're in Las Vegas and it's 110 and an excessive heat warning. Fall is coming, my friends. Okay, so this is just a cute picture, I think, to hang up. So here we go. Haulin Pumpkin is the name of this piece. Okay, and so I'm painting the sides. All right, isn't it cute? I just love to see it coming together. Now, if you don't like, okay, so you see how like the brush strokes aren't as distinct as they are in the reference photo. You can just add a little bit of white to your brush. If you use the very, very tip of the sponge brush, you can get some pretty good vertical lines going in your painting. If that's important to you. If it's not important to you, don't worry about it. Now, if it starts to look a little stripy like this one does, add a little bit of water to your paintbrush and just kind of work with it a little bit. I'm going fast, okay, for video purposes. You know, like when you watch the cooking videos and they pop out the brand new cake, the fully cooked cake, like super fast. Well, it's not a cake, but I gotta kind of speed things along. And so it takes a little while. And then tomorrow when you look at your painting, it's going to even be cooler because once the paint cures, there's a whole different look. So if you're concerned about those brush strokes, work outward from the truck like that. And just kind of play around with it a little bit till you get the desired effect, okay? I'm cool with this right here. I would touch it up a little bit more later. Like I said, I take you about 90% through the painting. All right, so now the next step I'm going to do, I'm going to paint my truck blue. Now, the blue is kind of, I don't know if you're going to hit the same blue that's in your reference photo. What we're going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of that dark blue. I'm going to mix a little bit of white with it. And then we're going to do the highlights with the teal, or the Tiffany blue as I like to call it. So I have blue and I have white. You could take the other side of that popsicle stick and mix it to make that blue a little bit lighter. You can mix it on your canvas. You can make your truck just dark blue. I'm mixing it up like that with my popsicle stick. I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off in my water. And when you change colors, you just simply swish your brush around in the water really good. And then you wipe it off on that blue paper towel to go into the next color, okay? So just like when we paint, I tell everybody, it's just like coloring, but just with a paintbrush. Don't be scared. So a little bit of blue paint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline what I want to be blue. And then I'm going to paint it in, just like a coloring book, okay? So I'm going to fully outline the truck first, all the parts. And if I'm going too fast, it's a video. Pause it. I like to, when I watch tutorials, because I do, I like to watch the video all the way through and then I work with the tutorial. So there's an idea too for next time, because there will be a next time. You'll paint with me again. Hopefully, you're having so much fun, you paint with me again. I hope you have your wine, or depending on time of the day. It is 8 o'clock in the morning in Las Vegas right now. So I have my favorite coffee cup by one of my favorite artists. Well, actually, my favorite artist, period. Look at it. It's called Tea Time. So I'm drinking my coffee this morning, painting the pumpkin. But it ain't always coffee, y'all. Depending on what the mood, what I'm painting and what my mood is, right? So, painting, I'm outlining everything. And then I'm going to paint the truck in blue, okay? And a little bit more music here. If the paint's a little sticky, add a little bit of water. Just like a coloring book. Except I'm using, just like we're coloring, I'm just using a paintbrush. Paint Party 101, that's what I like to call it. Got a little drippy on there. See how it dripped on there? There are no mistakes. Not a big deal. Acrylic paints. Very easy medium to work with. I'm just going to wipe it off there and go over it later with some more gray paint. I painted over my door handle, but that's not real hard for me to get back. So I am changing the direction of my brush strokes, like I did, like curved brush strokes for the wheel hub. I'm doing horizontal brush strokes here. Just kind of do what makes sense, follow the flow of the truck. Don't worry about the details, we'll work those out later. But you do want to not have white spaces. Unless you like that effect. All right. So I've painted in the truck. And I'm trying to get rid of, I don't want these gaps where the white paint is. So I'm going to kind of blend out the edges a little bit. All right, next color. The next color that we're going to use is orange. I'm doing black last because black's really strong and I don't want to muddy up my water or the painting. So I'm going to do orange first, and then I'm going to do the tree, okay? So again, going to go into my orange paint, going to outline it, and then paint it in, okay? Swishing my brush around in the water, wiping it off on the paper towel to go into orange. All right, that was pretty cool. That was pretty easy, right? Now I'm swishing my brush around in my water, and I am going to do the tree. Let me turn this music down just a tad. Okay, in your paint kit, you should have a little pencil. So this should be dry by now, and the pencil's fun because very forgiving because it has an eraser. So with it being dry, you can draw right on there, and then you can erase it if you make a mistake, okay? Even though there are no mistakes, but, you know, if you put something on the canvas that you don't particularly care for, how about that? So I can still see my tree a little bit. So I'm just going to draw my tree in. No two trees are the same, so you can try to draw that tree exactly like it is on my reference photo, but I don't think that that's very fun. Or you just got to go all willy-nilly and draw your own tree. And that's what I'm doing here, okay? So I just kind of sketched in my tree. I kind of like how the tree connects to the wheel hub, or is like hidden behind the wheel hub. So I'm going to try to create that same thing by connecting the tree like that. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to paint. You can see how I drew my tree. You kind of see a little bit better there. And I'm just going to... I'm just going to adjust the light just a little bit so you can see a little bit better. That's like too much. But anyway, you got to get the idea. You'll see as I start painting in. So, taking the flat tip brush and, you know what? Before I do that, I think I'm going to still work on my truck a little bit. I'm going to go back into the other blue before I start my tree. And I'm going to work on the highlights on the truck. So if you look at the truck a little bit, there's a little bit of differences between the blue. Like on the door, there's a few blue, Tiffany blue I'm going to call it, or teal. I was getting ahead of myself by jumping into the tree, I think. And there's a little bit of light blue on the wheel hub. And it's kind of like really highlighting the contouring, the shape of the truck, okay? So between a little bit of water, and I'm sorry I had to jump back and forth. I just kind of forgot about it. That's the power of live videos because I don't believe in editing, so it is what it is. So I'm just adding a little bit of teal to the painting. I'm actually going to add a little bit of water to my paintbrush and kind of smooth it out a little bit. And that's how I'm filling in the gaps where white is. Just kind of dragging the paint through it. You might like to have a lot more of that teal color in there. And if you do, just add it in there. We can work out the details on the door handle and all that. If you covered it up, don't fret. It's not really a big deal. And as you see with that pencil, once it gets dry, we can draw in all those features, right? So I'm adding a little bit of that teal paint anywhere I want it, actually. I think the biggest points, if you want to put in a specific point, is like right on top of the wheel hubs and the curve of the truck there, okay? And I'm noticing I have quite a bit of white space here, so I took a bit of water and kind of just evening out the paint. So I would put me on pause, actually, at this point and just really work with the truck and how you want the color to flow and filling in the gaps. And just take your time and work on the truck, the body of the truck, okay? All right. And then after that, we're working on the tree. So the tree is sketched in. If you pause me, and now you're back. The tree is sketched in. I'm rinsing out my paintbrush there, wiping it off on my blue paper towel, really dry. And then I am going over my trace lines that I did with the tree with just a tiny, tiny bit of paint. Black is very strong color, so you got to be careful with it. It's kind of hard to cover. You have to wait. If you paint over your tree and you don't like it, you have to paint over it white and then go over it again, okay? Being a little careful around the wheel hub here because I want to make sure that the tree looks like it's behind it. And just take a look at your reference photo if you're not real sure what I'm talking about. And the tree will really drive you crazy if you're trying to do it like mine. So that's why I just kind of having fun with it. Went right over those trace lines. And then what I'm going to do is, if you notice at the bottom of the painting, it's kind of like some reflection lines, like shadow lines for the tree. My brush right here has black paint on it. I'm just going to wipe it off a little bit on my paintbrush because I don't want that much paint at all. And then I'm just going to do some horizontal lines just going down for the reflections for the tire and reflections for the tree. Just real dry brush, quick little lines. And while I'm at it, I'm actually going to fix the bottom of my, remember where I kind of got some blue paint down there? So these are acrylic paints, by the way. They wash very easily off your skin, not so easily off your clothes. So you had a apron in your kit. I hope you figured it out. I forgot to mention that. Your apron in your kit kind of fully opens up and goes over your head. So there is an apron to protect your clothing. But acrylic paints are one of the easiest mediums to work with. So if you're a beginner painter, this is a great way to start. Now that doesn't look so good right now, but I know that when it dries, it's going to be just fine. All right. So that was me fixing up my little drippies that I had from the blue that had got down in there. So I'm good with that. So now I dropped my blue paper towel. Okay. So now I have black on my brush and a little bit of gray. I'm going to go with that a little bit. I'm going to keep that gray going, really light gray. I'm adding a little bit of white to my paintbrush, and I'm going around my wheels. I'm just adding a little bit of white. I'm letting the white of the canvas come through. I'm just adding a little bit of white for my wheels. You can use the white paint. I'm adding a little bit of gray to the wheels. You can use the white paint to kind of blend it in a little bit if you want it to look more white. And then I'm putting a few brush strokes in the window as well. And again, if you want to use the white of the canvas, that's fine. If you want to add a little white paint, that's fine too. This is me adding a little white paint and kind of smoothing it out just a little bit because that gray I put down was a little too dark for me. All right. Switching my brush out. Going into my black paint. And I am doing the little circles inside of the tire. This is where you have to use your artist's eye and kind of even it out a little bit. Because the sketch on your canvas is really just a sketch. It's not exact. So you might have to use your artist's eye, make sure that they're symmetrical. Maybe draw a line in the middle and make sure it's even on both sides, if that's a concern of yours, okay? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in the vines for my pumpkin. Again, with that pencil, that gray is pretty dry now. So you're going to have to trust yourself and kind of just draw in a little line for the pumpkin. Like, I'm not even doing it exactly the same. I wanted to get a little swirl in there, and I wanted to be kind of curly. And again, I'm painting sideways, so I'm kind of looking at this in a different angle than you. But this little swirl was important to me, and that little swirl right there was important to me. Okay? So if you look at your kit, you have that pointy detail brush. You're going to put a little bit of water on that, because the water's going to help the paint flow a little bit better. Go into your black paint and just go right over that line that you've created for yourself. And if you change your mind about the line, it's fine, because you can erase it once the paint dries, okay? Wait for the paint to dry to erase your line if you don't like it, okay? And like I said, the water makes the paint flow a little bit better. And I'm just going to go ahead and paint in the horn, I guess, of the pumpkin. And I'm using that detail brush, right? So I can get some pretty good points on the stem of the pumpkin. I guess it's a stem, right? And with that brush, that detail brush, I'm going to continue by outlining the lines in the pumpkin, because I don't want it to look like a coloring book, and I have a small amount of black paint on there. So I'm just kind of dragging it through, making sure it's curved. And then I'm going to put a little tiny bit of black paint on my brush, but I'm going to wipe it off on my paper towel. That's how small I want the black paint to be. Then I'm going to kind of work around my truck a little bit and do a few outlines. Not a hard line around everything, but just a few little outlines. And if you're not comfortable doing this, if your paint is dry, you can take your pencil and work out some of the details. Like, I'm going to just, I went into my black paint, going to wipe it off a little bit on my paper towel. And then I'm going to go over the door. And I'm trying to make sure I'm doing this right, because I'm looking at a reverse image here. And the door handle, right? And then the other wheel hub. So you're just going to work your way around the painting where the black is. Try not to create a really hard black line and not making it look like a coloring book unless you like that effect. Again, if you like that effect, it's perfectly fine. But if you don't like that effect, this is how it's done. Just kind of dragging the paint throughout with a dry brush. Not too much water. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a little exhaust here, which is just like a little square. Just going to paint that in. You can draw it in first. Again, if you're nervous about all this, just draw it in first. Now, the truck looks pretty good. I'm okay with it. It's not, I mean, my representation, my painting today is just to give you the rough idea of how to do it. It still needs a lot of work. When I say it looks okay, is that the technique and everything, I think you're clear on how to do it, okay? But still, a lot of work. If I take the light off of it, you can kind of get a better look at it. The next thing that I want to do is work on the fun tree. Now, I think the tree is really, really fun because you can put so many leaves on it, and do it how you want, but I like to use a Q-tip. If there's not a Q-tip in your kit, you can use the small detail brush or the flat tip brush to have the same effect. I'm going to show you with the flat brush. I rinsed it off in my water. I'm going to go into the orange paint, and I'm going to use the corner, and I'm just going to press down lightly. And you can see when you do that, you get a circular effect almost just by using the corner of the brush. If you use the detail brush, you can kind of create the same effect, right? You get smaller dots. There's a little black paint on there. So just because if you don't have the Q-tip, don't trip. You can create the same kind of effect. Now, I want to encourage you, when you're putting these dots on, to stay inside the tree. Because the little leaves that are floating are more like dashes than circles, okay? Because it's like the side view of the leaf, right? Doesn't seem like it makes a difference, but when I first painted this picture, it looked like it was snowing. And I was like, that doesn't look right. So anyway, so I'm taking the Q-tip, because I like using Q-tips because they're fun. And I am adding some leaves on. And there's a few leaves below the lowest branch that you have. I think the more leaves you put, the better. You don't want it to look like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. But it is fall, and the leaves are falling off the tree, right? So we're going to wait for this to dry and then apply another color. So with the orange there, don't forget the leaves that are in the ground. So on the ground. So there's a few leaves. And again, you don't have to follow my pattern. But I think it's important to have a few leaves around the bottom of the base of the tree and then the back of the truck right here. Isn't that cute? I just think this painting is so cute. And then there's a little behind the wheel right here. All right. So for those little floaties, I'm going to take my detail brush, which is the pointy brush, and I'm going to trust myself to just add a few little dashes. Again, if you don't trust yourself, you can pencil them in, but I don't think it's as fun. And then there's a few behind. Make sure your brush is clean. Mine has a little bit of black on it. All right. So I just love doing the tree because the tree like starts to come to life after you put the layers of color. So we need it to be dry. So I'm going to fan it a little bit, or you could blow on it. And acrylic paints dry very quickly. That's one of the other great features about acrylic paints, fanning it. And then I'm going to go into the gray paint. You can use the same Q-tip, the other side, or you can use your paintbrush. And I still have some great gray paint in my tray. You might have to make a little bit more gray for yourself. And then we're going to go right on top of what's there, or in between and on top. Just trust yourself and have fun with it. And this is gray. And then if you really look at the reference photo, there's another level of gray that's a little darker, like the dark that we put down here. So you could add a little bit of black to your existing gray and then apply another layer of color to the tree. And then when I do that, I want it to dry first, okay? So we're going to let this dry. And while that's drying, just take a look at your painting. Kind of work on and tighten up the areas that you don't like too much. Like for me, I want the base of the tree. It's kind of twiggy looking. I want my tree to be just a little bit wider. So I'm going to make it wider. And then another thing that I noticed is I want a few little really tiny branches. So I'm working with the detail brush right now. I'm just going to add a few little tiny twigs to my tree. Man, you could just work on this tree all day, like you really could, right? And then I'm looking at my tree a little bit more. I think I dropped my Q-tip, so I'm just going to use my detail brush. And I'm going to add a little bit of more leaves down here. I'm not even washing off my brush. I'm just going back and forth between the orange. All right, so this is 90% through the painting, at least, probably 99. Like I said, we've been painting maybe 30 minutes. It takes a good 2 hours to complete your painting. 3 would be ideal. Don't forget to sign and date it either. But the very, very last color I'm going to use once this is dry is white. So put your white over there. And then don't forget the white little highlights in the pumpkin. Now the pumpkin's dry now, so I'm going to add a few white highlights to the truck and the pumpkin. So that's on the pumpkin. And then a few white highlights here and there on the truck. Just kind of trusting myself. And then the tree, I'm going to wait for it to dry a little bit to add those white highlights. So I hope you enjoyed Haulin' Pumpkin. I think it's super cute, super fun to do with your family. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Text me. Inside Your Kit is my phone number. Inside Your Kit is my Facebook, my Instagram. Please post your pictures. That's what brings me joy and fills my spirit. So I hope you paint with me again. Be safe out there. Again, my name is Angelique Daniels. You have painted with Angelique at the Shoe Chick Art Studio in fabulous Las Vegas. Hope to see you again. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you.